So I think there's elements that help you naturally. Then there's some elements that help you that you can manufacture. Then there's some cheap calorie type stuff that you can do. And let's start with cheap calories. All right, welcome back, everybody.
Behind the grind.
Rich Brubaker.
Brian Tam. So this episode, we're doing something a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
I think what we want to do, we sent out an invitation for some questions, and here we are. We're answering them. How novel of an idea is that, right? I think the questions I got were pretty interesting, and they're for both of us.
Sure.
So we can take turns answering or however you want to do it. So first question.
Yeah.
How do introverts differ than extroverts? Right into it. How do introverts differ from extroverts in entrepreneurship? Well, first of all, what do you consider that? Do you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert, or how do you think about that?
Ooh, I'm a bit of both. It depends on the day.
Okay.
I think I'm naturally introverted. I like to just have my own space, my own time, and like get in my own head. Yeah. But actually, like if I'm at if I'm at a networking event or if I'm online, I can actually be really kind of like just enjoy that moment. But I'm definitely someone who unless I know someone in the scrum, I will dance around the room. Okay, yeah. Waiting for my easy moment. Yeah. So my take is that it can make a huge difference. If you're a solopreneur, you better have the ability to talk about what you do, get over yourself, like really get into it. Right. If you're an introvert and you're not online, it's going to be really hard in a situation to sell yourself, to talk about yourself because you're not comfortable doing that. Right. But if you are a team, then it's okay to have a balance between the extroverts and the introverts. And the extroverts should be more biz dev focused, be more leaning towards sales, be more leaning towards working with employees. Where the introvert might be a lot more like the process of the organization of the development or whatever. Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I had a very similar process. I am a lot more introverted. I really don't enjoy going out there and doing all the business development. But at the same time, I've learned to tap into that extroverted side of me, and I am going out to doing speeches, going out to do networking events, going out to meeting people, talking to new clients. And I think in some ways, these are basically skills. You can stop looking at it as personality, but looking at it as like core functions to a successful business. You don't have that. You're missing.
You're gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle. Yeah.
So that question comes from Milo, and he actually follows up with another one.
Yeah.
Let me see. How do you know when an idea is worth pursuing? Should I just quit my job and go balls in? This is from Milo. Should I just quit my job and go balls in, or should I play it safe and dip my toe in here or there?
I think it comes down to your confidence.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I think so. Actually, I've spent a lot of time talking about this, and I think there's a lot of. Let's start off with the external stuff.
Okay.
Are you single? Are you married? Are you married? Do you have kids?
Okay, that's
right. Like, what's your risk profile look like? Do you own a house? Do you not own a house? Do you have a trust fund? Do you not have a trust fund? Did you flip a bunch of real estate and you have a piggy bank that you can rely on and not worry about it? Right. Or are you a vagabond? Right. Like, I think all of that matters. I think the other thing that would matter is how much experience do you have? Do you already have interested clients? You already have people buying stuff without you really selling too hard. Like you're like, oh yeah, I have this idea for a blah blah blah. And people are like, I'll give you $10,000 for that. Right. And it's like,
how about that?
Just got to develop it and get out and you're done. But if you're like, I'm going to try X, I'm going to try Y, I'm going to try Z, and none of them have anything to do with each other, and you don't have any direct experience in any of them, I think you're going to find it's better to stay with your main, I think what Gary Vee calls the steak, and then leave the sides there that hopefully they turn into something more substantial over time. Right. But I think that if you jump off onto one or you try and do all three, it can be it can be more difficult. It's not to say don't do it, but it's just more difficult. I don't know. What do you see?
Yeah, totally. I think it's going back to that same question of knowing your personality or same response of knowing your personality and that self-awareness thing again. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I think the best way, though, is to look at number one, your passion, and number two, your resources, and trying to find the intersection between the two. And resources can also be a skill, capability, or something like that, right? And then finally, just looking at from what the client's point of view, who's paying you, who's actually going to pay you to do what, right? Are you, if you're talking about a service business again, right? Or if you're developing something, then, again, if you have a client request or customers paying you, then maybe you have a potential for business, right? So those two questions from Milo. Thank you, Milo. Next question is from Yazib Askari. She asks, what motivates you to be successful in life? Actually, that's a great question. What motivates you?
Ooh, that's a big question
That's
right
a big
there.
question.
So, I mean, very seriously.
It's all about the money, right?
It's all about the money. Someday. So I actually have a specific video that I want to cut around this for the two of us because I think it's something that's ever changing. But let me just start off with the organizations that I've built personally and the mission I'm on personally revolve around urban sustainability, be it environmental, economic, or societal. Everything I've done focuses around understanding how to deliver the maximum amount of impact in that space. Now, I will say this can at times be in direct conflict with what other people think is successful. Money, cars, vacations, whatever it may be. Because I've been looking at this as a much more long-term, vision.
You see that.
I see that. Yeah. And so I've invested a lot into that process, knowing that the successes I may have today are going to be micro/false wins for something that I see much larger in the future. I also think that success is something that is really, it's really about what you want, and at times that can really change. Like you can have a very successful project that doesn't lead you anywhere in your big vision, but you can make a lot of progress in your vision, but see no progress today. And I think this comes down to self-awareness. Also, where are you within your genesis of entrepreneurship? Like how do you measure it? But I think whatever your vision is and whatever you think it is that the big success vector is, if you can bring that back down to what does that mean today, next month, next year, the nice thing is that you will be less likely to lose track or like look at other people's Instagram feed and look for cues on what success means. You're more likely to just figure it out. And that's the only thing there's a few things I've learned about success. I don't have a defined thing though.
I think, I agree with everything you're saying, right? And so I think there's that, and then the corollary to it is that are you enjoying the work every moment of every day, right? And are you enjoying the process of working through things? Right. That is a huge definition for success. There's a lot of openness for how you interpret that. As long as you're, doing something you're in control of and you're happy and you're somewhat finding a reward for. And I think the key question here is, what are the different types of reward that you value? Right. Is it only cash? Because if that's the case, then you're probably not going to be this kind of impact entrepreneur.
Go be a day trader.
Yeah, that's a much better way to do it, right? There's so many better ways to earn money than just to do this. Yeah. But if you have that long-term vision, like Rich is talking about, if you have that value or this desire to make impact in a greater society, that's not going to happen in the short term. It just requires time.
I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's something that I've just, I've redefined over time. Like, if I look at like what my earliest metrics were, it's like what I want to be known as. And I had this thing where it's like, I went to my grandfather's funeral and everyone kept saying he's a great man. And I was thinking, I want people to say that. Like that was a metric of success for me. It's like when I'm gone or when I'm being celebrated, if I'm being celebrated, like the people are saying good things about me. That's a key metric. But he didn't have anything. He didn't have wealth. He had community. He had respect. He had hard work that people valued. And so, the 5 things of success that I've heard in the past, like, one's getting paid and one's like what you're learning. And do you love it? What's your legacy? And do you feel like you're accomplishing things? Like all of those are important. It just depends on like how you're feeling today and how this maps into your longer term view. And the more confident you are, I think the more grounded you are.
Let's move on to the next question. This, it's funny. These questions are coming from random people from all different, walks of life. And
that's the most fun, though.
They're still crossing over, though. There's still a lot of overlap, right? And so Selena is Yazip is from the UK. Milo's from New York, I think. And Selena's from Shanghai, right? And she's asking, can you share more pictures of life here in WeChat? Do you have any work-life balance? Because she's referring to my WeChat and my Facebook feed or whatever, my social feed. Right. It's me working.
Okay.
Right. I'm just showing. That's the only thing. I don't have. I'm not thinking about that because I'm enjoying it, right? But what are your thoughts on work-life balance?
Yeah, my wife has a whole different thought about this. I think I'm in perfect balance. Okay. Look, it's way out of whack sometimes, and then other times it's way out of whack in the other way.
Yeah.
I definitely take I work long hours. I work most days of the week, if not every day of the week. And I tend to not take as many vacations as I probably should. my social feed represents my business life, period. And there's a few reasons for that. One is that I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to show people the work that I'm doing, not to show off, but because I'm tired of looking at Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds and whatever that are a distraction or are inflammatory or are not productive. I want to show people that you can do things for the betterment of the world. The second reason why I don't put much, like once or twice a year, I'll put a family picture up there.
Oh, that's really low.
And that's specific because I don't want the algorithm. I don't want to be one of those parents who tells my son, you cannot be on social media. But then I've had 15 years of his pictures on social media.
Right.
I think that's kind of shitty.
That's interesting.
And I think that, to respect my family, if they don't want to be involved in like that persona that I might be creating or that I have created, then I should respect that. And so I keep that separate. But I still have a lot of downtime. My wife says I need to have hobbies. Well, I bought video cameras.
Here we are.
Like I like to travel. I love to eat, clearly. So it's not about work-life balance. It's just about making sure that you're moving everything in a direction that you're happy with. And yes, at times you'll make sacrifices, but definitely make the time to actually just say, like, look, it can't be all one or all the other. Or if it is, that these are the costs too. I'd say actually most entrepreneurs probably work-life balance isn't the problem. It's health that's the problem. Right. So they'll do the family thing and they'll sacrifice their sleep to make the work thing. And then pretty soon they're like, oh, I'm really tired. Oh, I'm grumpy. Oh, I'm emotional. And they take it out on the family, to take it out at the office. And that's when the balance is actually kind of lost. But if you're self-aware, I think we keep coming back to this term, right?
This sounds,
If you keep coming, if you have that, then actually I think that you'll find that you find a balance that's respectful of yourself, of your business, of your family. And yes, at times you'll take from each one, but the idea is that you shouldn't keep taking in perpetuity. Right.
I think, it's interesting because there's these patterns of our topics and conversations, both from social, the questions that come from social media, but also our responses to it, right?
Well, I think that, I remember my theater class, like theater represents what's happening out in society, right? Like these are some big questions that people are like, should I be an entrepreneur? What about hustle? What about these are the narratives that if you're reading Inc., Fast Company, Facebook, like if you look at entrepreneurship, these are the hot topics. So I think, I'm happy to have these questions. I really enjoy these conversations. But I think the other thing is that they're very interlinked. How you feel and how you produce and how you do is all going to be linked to your own balance at the time.
That's so true. For me, answering this social media question or, why don't I post more pictures of my personal life is that I don't find it interesting. I just don't. I'm eating something that doesn't make it interesting. I'm going on my hike or whatever. It's not interesting, right? And so I think what you said is that as an entrepreneur, you're trying to carve out this persona. It doesn't mean it's fake. It just means that it's a elevated or a focused version of you, right? And so for me, my social media now that I've started to use it is a very intentional act of putting out my thoughts, my point of views on certain topics around innovation and entrepreneurship, right? So this is just an extension of that. And I think social media is not reality.
It's the reality that you want to present at the time.
Exactly. So, you could
actually, it's its own way of creating its own problems and how people see you. Like, look, I have 95% of my day, and 1% of it I will spend. I'll have like 90% of work or whatever, of things that are fixed, and like I have 5% like free time, and I'll spend like 1% on social media. And you're getting like either the thing that one of my teams of the charity has put out, or one of the events that the other team did, or like maybe a travel picture of me meeting with an entrepreneur. But you're not seeing everything else in between. You're seeing very small slices of what I have time for or what I want people to see. So in that sense, it's not real, but also it should be curated in a way that I think it represents who you are. And actually who I am not is definitely what you were talking about. Like, I don't find taking pictures of food very interesting. I actually like the uncommon things in life that are somewhat scarce that other people aren't experieing. I'm just like every other millennial.
It's not a picture. It's not a picture that you can just share or something like that.
I'd much rather like remember some of the stuff up my head while I can. Or like if it's family pictures, like we print out the albums. I really like that.
For you.
Yeah, it's for me.
Right. Yeah, I think there's so much here. And the last thing before we move on, I think, is that we as entrepreneurs And founders, we have to find things that we enjoy, but then in some ways we also have to find a way to turn that into something too.
Yeah.
So my daily writing, it's just turned into this book, right? It was a reflection process for me.
Right.
It was a way of exercising my creativity, and I've finally found a way to package it into a book, right? Same thing with these things. I think we're trying to find these downtimes and be somewhat productive for it, so we don't feel like that guilty in some way.
So actually, I'll jump off that and say, like, you know, when I think of the time I spend on social media or that I spend not being productive, I will often think of the fact that I'm separate from my family. So why am I sitting here plugging away at trying to get my Instagram food porn pictures up when I should be trying to pay bills for my family if I'm going to be doing this work?
Right.
Like, also, I think where I have been, I've really enjoyed social media is that I'm able to highlight the work of the team,
That's huge,
but also the movement and how we're able to, not just us, but as entrepreneurs, like my Entrepreneurs for Good series, like move the ball forward in all these different ways. I love highlighting the work of other people.
Yeah.
I don't care about sharing the latest political this or the latest meme that or latest joke on this. Like that for me, it's again, I'm apart from my son and my wife, and we could be spending that 3 minutes, that 30 minutes together.
Right.
No, I'm going to focus it on being productive.
It's about those priorities, right? I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so here, speaking of priorities, here we go. Virginia is asking, what's a typical day like for you? What does that look like?
So there's some typical elements to it. Okay. I try to play dead longer than my wife so that she will get up and take care of little man to get him on the bus. Like, you know the parents, you know what I'm talking about. You're like,
I'm going to send her this clip right here.
Like literally like, I'm so tired. So I will tend to get up somewhere between say 7:30 and 9, depending upon whether or not I'm the one who's being a responsible individual, which is, like 10, 50% of the time. Yeah. And then basically, let's assume that I get up early. I put little man on the bus. And then I'm either going to go to a coffee shop or I'm going to go get some work done. I'm going to get my emails done.
Right.
I will come into the office. And this assuming, again, I'm in Shanghai. I'll come in the office. And I'll generally do a couple hours. I'll try and keep the team at bay, try and get a couple hours done. Lunch, and then I can do a lot of meetings throughout that. I'll do calls a lot. Okay. So actually, I've moved a lot of my physical meetings into calls now if I can, because actually I found
that's so valuable.
It's so valuable. Like like I love having an hour-long meeting, but I also realize that some things need just to be 30 minutes on the phone or on a Zoom or whatever. Yeah. I tend to wrap up. Let's call it 6:30, 7 o'clock. Go home, dinner, hang out with the little man, put him down. I fall asleep almost every day, like for an hour and a half with him. And then I'll stay up till like 2 a.m. working.
Oh, wow.
I'm a really late worker.
That's interesting.
Now there's what I call work, some people call YouTube, but I'll be trying to edit videos. When I get tired, I'll go and try and like learn a new trick or a new tool. Right. I have a few series on YouTube that I'll watch because I really like how they present the story. Right. So I'm not doing it just like for brain candy, but like I started watching Gary Vee because I loved how he told a story. Right. I don't care how people take him, but he tactically told stories in ways that I found was just fascinating. So I'll take some time to learn every day as well. Smart. Over lunch, I'm definitely somewhere learning something. If I'm not with someone, having a conversation where I'm learning from that. Also, I definitely try and do that. Weekends work Saturday. Yeah. Sundays off. Okay. Usually.
Okay, so it's a pretty solid schedule. I mean, it's a lot longer than I expected. I didn't know the 2 a.m.
If I'm traveling, it's more extreme. If I'm traveling, it's like I wake up 7 and I'll work until 2. Yeah. And like my last trip to Hong Kong, I was there for less than 2 days and I had, I think, 18 meetings. Ooh. And I was just like, because again, I'm away from the family. Time. Yeah. Don't waste the time away from family. Right. So what about you, Brian? What's your day? What's your day, Ryan?
My typical day, it depends if I'm in project mode for a client or not. And so if I am in project mode, I try to clear out all the different coffee meetings and things like that. But if I don't have a major client where, because there are times where there aren't a major clients, we're going BD mode, right? And BD mode for me is having coffees, meeting a ton of people, going out, setting up events, and speaking at events, right? That's my main way of trying to create some BD, trying to elevate my persona, as it were. So at that time during BD time, it's about 3 to 5 coffee meetings per day. Not all coffees. Not all coffees. I switched to soda water and decaf and juice as much as possible. So
yeah, you got to do that, man.
And it just adds up, right? And so I wake up around 8:30, a little bit later, obviously. Yep. And I try to bang out one of those daily posts that I write every day by 10 o'clock. And so I'm checking emails. I'm so unproductive. I'm checking emails. I'm writing the posts. I'm making my coffee, and then whatever, right? And then from 10 to 12, I'll probably have a meeting or two. 12 might be a third meeting. And then from 1:30 or so to 5, I'm working, trying to get some PowerPoints done or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then 6, 7 is just wrapping things up, getting things ready for the next day and things like that.
I think the thing that I struggle with my day, honestly, especially if I've got a lot of projects on, or I've got a lot of, I have a lot of things to do that, I'm actually starting to look at all the things that I do, and I'm really like, I'm busy, and I do a lot, and none of it's bullshit. But I realize like there's a level of productivity now that I need to start finding, and when I get to that point, actually, I start to either bring the team in, delegate better, or hire more people, because what I'm actually looking for, what I really wish I had more in my day is like a solid 2-hour chunk of just think, like just sit down.
Yeah.
Like it could be over coffee, it could be like at the gym, it could be, just 2 hours where I have just me, just my own head, and I feel like that as an entrepreneur is probably the time that I value the most, get the least of. Even like I'm on a family vacation, even if I'm in an airplane, like there's always something happening. Yeah. And so that's the time that I'm trying to bring into the schedule.
But you need those 2 hours solid to get through a lot of that junk, and then just really finding about 20 to 30 to 45 minutes of like clarity.
Yeah, because I find like you get so far into the weeds so long that you can't even see where you're headed right now. And so it's very difficult to see the mountain if you're just head down. So actually what I'm trying to do now more and more is bake that time in. And I have to be honest, like I have not found it so far. There's moments of like every once in a while, like I'll check into the airport like 8 hours early, and I'll go sit in a lounge, or I'll sit in a coffee shop.
Be a good airport.
Hong Kong or Singapore. Like
those are the only two.
Yeah. It's not like St. Louis or anything. But like I'll find a nice and just like it's like the doctor's office. You're forced to do nothing, right? Like I'm not gonna go shopping at duty free.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. And hopefully the Wi-Fi is good enough for you to at least get some work done.
But actually, just turn it off.
Yeah.
Just turn it off.
That's when you can get into that zone.
Yeah. Like I can get all the type stuff done, and then I'm like, okay, 2 hours of just think time.
So that was a question for Virginia, and we're going to be moving on. Final question from the audience.
Final round.
All right, here we are. Eddie's asking. He's a young guy.
Okay.
Right? And he's thinking, how do I get this negativity out of my head? I'm always beating myself up. Right. So how does he get around that? Did you ever have this, issue for you, or thoughts about negativity?
Yeah. I mean, again, self-awareness and confidence at the end of the day, and also like a clarity of your vision. And I think there's elements that help you naturally. Then there's some elements that help you that you can manufacture. Then there's some cheap calorie type stuff that you can do. And let's start with cheap calories. Okay. That's YouTube.
The quick,
Right. That's Anthony Robbins. That's Gary Vaynerchuk. That's like rah. That's the Mulligan Brothers. What it is. Like they take all these clips and they're like, it could be The Rock or whoever, like powering through, and like stuff, how they're all poor and dirt poor and they all powered through and hunger. Like, that's cheap calorie because you can't act on that. You can't do anything about it. Okay. Then you have your ecosystem that I think can help you. I won't say surrounded by your 5 best whatevers, but if you have a healthy ecosystem of entrepreneurs, of individuals where you have true support, where you feel just like I'm grounded. I've got an ecosystem that I can count on, that supports me, that I feel confident with. You can then feel a lot more comfortable moving some of that out of your head and being able to stand up a little bit and feel like, like kind of Jordan Peterson, stand up and put your shoulders back, and that's a big part of it. But I think internally, you kind of like the question of delusional entrepreneurs, and like, it depends upon the stage. And I think if you really see the vision, if you are starting to, you have to appreciate the little moments that you have, But I think what helps is that if you really believe in the vision and you accept the fact that not everyone's going to understand your vision as a starting point, that's great. I mean, if you're early in and you're feeling this, that's okay, because you should be learning. You should be getting used to the uncomfortable.
Uncertainty is part of the process.
If you're 10 years in and your core product is failing, that's a whole different thing, and that's a whole negative thing. And that's like, what is failing, right? And I can remember a couple of moments where, like, one is I didn't know what was failing. I just knew that I was, and that's really uncomfortable.
You internalize it.
You internalize it. But if you can look at your organization, look at your product, look at yourself, look at your pattern, and go, no, that's what's failing. The negative thoughts aren't about you, and they're not eating you up, and you're not kicking yourself in the head. You're able to focus that energy and that attention on solving a problem. I think also what I've learned over time is, if you're a really emotional individual, if you don't feel like you have support, if you don't feel like you've gotten anywhere in the time that you've spent, that negativity is easier to listen to. And what you need to do is you need to really recognize that that's what's happening. And I think this is where, like, I learned from my own burnout, you know, is like, you need to then recognize that you might be in a negative cycle, and to find positivity, to reach out actively. Don't think it's just going to go away. If it does, it's going to take a really long time, and you're going to have to find bottom on your own. And that's an unhealthy place.
Totally.
So yes, I've been there, but I find that when I'm confident in myself, when I'm confident in my vision, when I'm confident with my team, and I'm really enjoying the product, I don't have that problem. Right?
So, all right, my take on this is what I've done. I really struggled with negativity as a much younger guy. I think growing up in America, you have in the education system there, it's so much about being critical thinking, right? And self-evaluation, and then seeing how competitive everyone is, right? Right. And if you're different than them, you really feel like you're not as good. There's so many other people who are so much better at different things, and we're like, what am I good at? And early on, you're not sure, right? And so it took me a long time until I was about 25, 26, and what I started to do around that time was it sounds somewhat absurd, I don't do it anymore, but what I highly recommend it though, was I kept a journal, a journal for praise that I got. And it actually added up. I mean, it was amazing. And it didn't matter how big the praise was, or how, or who it came from, or whatever it was, but I try to write it down, what it was, and who said it. I mean, you just want to capture it. You don't want to evaluate that. And over time, and I'm not looking
but what
at
happens
it
like when people stop praising you, and you're like,
we don't look
shit,
at it.
I haven't gotten a praise moment in 3 months.
You're not calculating that time. You're just looking at the qualitative aspect of it, right? What are they saying? What are they valuing on the work that you're doing, right? And I thought, after eventually that it was a Word doc. After a while, that Word doc got just to be unwieldy, and I needed to open another one, right? Just to start fresh. And then you know, if you're depending on it too much, it's also unhealthy, right? So after a little while, you get that confidence boost. And the thing is that negativity isn't always true, and I think that's the thing, right? That praise journal, for lack of a better word, was just a way to harness the praise that was there. And
social media makes this all the more difficult because, you know, like
social media,
Jesus, like social media is what, like I would say, like if you look at your Facebook feed and you see like 100 different stories that are all like your friends doing amazing shit, remember, it's one slice of each friend that you're looking at. But when you add all that up, you think that everyone's doing it awesome. But what you realize, like,
nice algorithm to do that for you.
Yeah, thank you. But I think actually, I mean, today I was on WeChat for a second, and I saw where someone that I know had done something that I had been talking about forever, that I and the team need to get done. And I was so pissed. But at the same time, if you look at the scoreboard, you're not putting points on the board.
Right.
So I was like,
doing that.
Damn it. Get back in the game. Because I believe that I had the better product. I believe that I should have been there first. And that's not being competitive with that person. That's recognizing that I took my eye off the ball because I was looking at what someone else was doing and thinking that that somehow made me better, less, equal. I think that's a really dangerous game. So if you're already negative, get off social. Go talk to real human beings over a lunch, over a drink, over a dinner.
We are social beings.
Whatever. We are social beings.
Absolutely.
Have a deep conversation with someone. Because a deep conversation, be like, Brian's just done this amazing thing. Here's the process it took. And you get so much out of that. So
the reality of it.
The reality. Like the wins are the final moment of the process.
Right.
Recognize that you're in a process. Enjoy it as much as possible.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes
Yep.
it's going to hurt, right? But if you put the points on the scoreboard, you can look back at the end of the game.
Right.
But if you look at midstream, there's going to be times you're up and times you're down, and that can really, I think, play with this balance up here.
Yeah, that's probably it. I mean, there's just so much going on, and you know, it goes back to paying attention to what your inputs are. Are you looking at social media? What media are you looking at? And where are the voices coming from in your head? Where is that, you know, anxiety or whatever negativity is coming
we're
from?
programmed as humans to flex.
Yeah.
Right? And if we don't think that we're flexing bigger than other people, we're like, oh, I need to go. Like, no, go
as
do
animals,
the work.
really. I mean, we just got to keep flexing, right?
Be your peacock. Show your feathers, right?
Yeah,
like, you know,
I think especially if I can say for Asians and Chinese people, it's not something we're especially good at. It's not something that we are known for, right? You know, growing up, it was not about standing out.
Right.
It was not. It was, why would you say how good you are? It's just not. And so this was something that I know him, and he's obviously Chinese, or from what I've talked to him. And for sure, this is not part of the culture of saying like, you should go talk about your achievements. You should write down your
but
achievements,
academically,
right?
come on, man. Like, it's all on the wall. It's like Brian's number 1 and Rich is number 32.
Dude,
your parents are on your face.
For me, I was middle of the pack, right? Out of
Oh.
500 students, I was 250, 260 even, right? I was on the bottom end,
around there.
right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, you know, so I didn't have that. And so it took until 29 that I started to accumulate some sort of like minor achievements and things that I thought were valuable. And I think that's the key, actually. What do you do? What do you find valuable? And are you chasing achievements in that? If you're not, then why are you chasing anything?
Again, if you're chasing cheap calories, you'll find it very quickly. But if you're committed to a process, you're committed to, like, you're gonna reevaluate success, where you are, and then how you feel. And I think it's a process that you need to get comfortable with. It takes time, and if you're younger, it's more difficult. If you're more older,
that's the thing.
You know, like. You stop giving a shit sometimes, right? At some point, you should.
It's a healthy dose of not giving a shit, right? And so I hope if you're on the younger end of things, you'll get there soon. And if not, then, you know, you'll get there eventually. Trust me. You know, you just get to the facts, get to the source of that negativity, and cut it out, or deal with that, work through that. Those are the questions.
It's easy, man. Thanks.
These are amazing questions.
Those are fun. And
it was really interesting to see how the patterns evolved out of the questions, and how people were all carrying around similar things. And I really loved the answers that Rich had. I thought my answers were pretty good too.
No, I like the back and forth. I think it gives us both the chance to talk through some of these things.
Beautiful.
So please keep the questions coming.
Yes.
You know, in whatever format, whether it's on WeChat or Twitter or whatever, like, keep them coming. I know in the comments below would be great too. Because I think this actually gives us a lot of oxygen to discuss through, because we have very different experiences, but we definitely have one passion that's really helping you understand, like, what's happening behind the grind.
There we go.
Thank you very much for this episode of Behind the Grind. Rich Brubaker.
Brian Tam. See you next time.